My name is Paisley Ford, and I am 29 years old. I live with my husband, Kane, who is 5 years older than me, and our 5-year-old son. Today, Kane and I are attending a wedding together. While the bride and groom are mere acquaintances to me, my husband knows them much better. In fact, I only recognize them by sight. The wedding is being held at a luxurious hotel, and though I know it's not my place to wonder, I can't help but think about how much it must have cost to organize such an extravagant event. Upon arriving at the venue, my husband excused himself to greet some familiar faces, leaving me to my own devices. Seizing the opportunity, I decided to freshen up in the ladies' room. As I exited and made my way back to the ceremony, I suddenly heard hushed but unmistakably cruel voices. "Oh, look who's here, that defective piece of goods. What is she even doing in a place like this?" "What do you mean, Mom? Oh my goodness, you're right. But we didn't invite her?" The words hit me like a slap in the face. I felt the unmistakable sting of being insulted, and they weren't even trying to be discreet about it. These weren't just passive-aggressive remarks, they were outright, blatant insults. But they hadn't addressed me directly, so I chose to ignore them. I had no interest in engaging with people who could say such vile things. Instead, I quickened my pace, determined to leave the area. However, just as I was about to make my escape, a sharp, commanding voice called out behind me. "Wait right there, you ugly thing. I know you can hear me." I stiffened but kept walking, refusing to dignify such an insult with a reaction. My name is not you ugly thing. As I strode purposefully down the hallway, I suddenly heard hurried footsteps behind me. My heart pounded in annoyance and slight apprehension. Seriously? Shouldn't they have given up by now? Why would they embarrass themselves like this? Before I could process my next move, a hand suddenly clamped down on my arm, fingers digging painfully into my skin. The unexpected force made me gasp. "I told you to wait!" a woman shouted breathlessly. I turned to look at her, scanning her face with indifference before firmly shaking off her grip. As I did, she stumbled backward with a dramatic cry, as if I had shoved her with all my might. What an absurd act. "Lel, are you all right? How violent she is!" Another woman rushed to support her, glaring daggers at me. "I suppose this is what happens when someone of such low intelligence is raised improperly?" I narrowed my eyes, exhaling sharply. "Excuse me, but what exactly is this about? Who are you?" The woman's perfectly arched eyebrows shot up in utter disbelief. "What? Who am I? Are you seriously saying you've forgotten me?" She scoffed, her voice laced with condescension. "You must be joking. You're so unbelievably self-absorbed, how could you not remember your own sister, Elle? And this woman beside me, she's our mother. Or, don't tell me you've forgotten your own parent too?" I tilted my head slightly, my expression unreadable. "Well, I suppose someone by that name might have been close to me once upon a time." My voice was flat, uninterested. These people weren't worth my energy. My dismissive response seemed to enrage them further. Just then, 2 men came rushing toward us, their expressions filled with urgency. "What's all this commotion? We could hear shouting from over there," one of them demanded. "Elle, are you finished with the preparations? Oh, wait, you're still in your regular clothes. You need to change quickly." "Dad, Ron!" Elle turned to them with exaggerated distress, pointing an accusing finger at me. "This woman, she's an intruder. She crashed our wedding. Please, throw her out immediately." I suppressed an eye roll. Didn't anyone teach her that pointing at people was rude? The 2 men's reactions couldn't have been more different. The man addressed as Dad widened his eyes before his face twisted into a deep scowl, his displeasure clear as day. Meanwhile, the man called Ron went completely rigid, his complexion turning ghostly pale. Why is she here?" he stammered, his voice barely above a whisper. "I never thought I'd have to see her face on such a happy day." "Right? She must have snuck in here by mistake. This is unacceptable. Please, call security right away." Elle insisted, her voice shrill with manufactured indignation. "Hey, what are you saying? Watch your mouth. This person is—" Ron suddenly shouted, his face drained of all color, but he stopped short, looking utterly shaken. Seeing this, I muttered under my breath, "So you really don't know anything, do you?" Of course, no one paid attention to my quiet words. Just then, a familiar voice called out my name, strong and steady. "Paisley! So this is where you were. I've been looking for you." All heads turned toward the new arrival. My husband Kane stood there, his sharp gaze scanning the scene, his presence commanding the attention of everyone in the room. The tension in the air became almost suffocating. At once, Kane looked slightly taken aback. "Sorry, I meant to come right back, but I got caught up with some strange people," I say with a wry smile as I move closer to him. Kane blinks and looks around at everyone present, his sharp eyes scanning the room before he mutters, "Ah." It seems he has quickly grasped the situation. That's my Kane. Elle, who had been staring at Kane in admiration when he suddenly appeared, quickly switches back to glaring at me as I stand beside him. The two people referred to as father and mother still wear confused expressions, as if they haven't fully processed the situation. Meanwhile, Ron looks clearly flustered. He is also the first to break the silence. Dr. Ford, I'm so sorry. It seems my wife has been very rude, and my deepest apologies to your wife as well," he stammers. Then, turning to Elle, he insists, "Hey, Elle, you apologize too." "What?" "Why should I apologize?" Elle scoffs indignantly. "She's the one who should be apologizing. This shameless person sneaked into our important wedding. I don't know how she found out about it, but this woman is the shame of our family. We threw her out of the house long ago, and we were never supposed to see her face again." "Family, you say?" Kane seems surprised by this word and looks back and forth between Elle and me. The so-called father and mother quickly jump in to explain. "Oh, Ron, we're so sorry. You see, we have a good-for-nothing eldest daughter. She's such an embarrassment that we couldn't even bring ourselves to mention her. Well, we threw her out of the house 9 years ago. Really, I wonder how she even found out about Elle's wedding. Showing up here like this, what could she possibly be planning? She's not trying to ruin Elle's wedding, is she?" "That's right." Mother chimes in, her voice dripping with disdain. "She was a foolish daughter who couldn't even get into college, just a useless defect. She wasted her time with part-time jobs after graduation and lazed around the house being nothing but a nuisance. She was quite the parasite. Honestly, we should be thanked for taking care of her through high school." The insults keep coming, one after another. But I had long since given up on this so-called family. I had learned to gracefully ignore all manner of verbal abuse. Yes, technically these people are my family. That's what the family register says. However, my parents doted on my younger sister, who is 6 years younger than me, while I was completely neglected for as long as I can remember. My father's family had been doctors for generations, running a medical clinic. And my mother worked there as a nurse. On the surface, we probably looked like a well-off, respectable family, but in reality, it was a household poisoned by toxicity and favoritism. When I was a child, I think there were moments when I tried hard to be loved by my parents, but after hearing their incomprehensible reasoning, "Elle is cute and you're not," as their justification for always prioritizing my sister, I eventually stopped expecting anything from them. Fortunately, if I do say so myself, I was intelligent and had a love for studying. So I focused on my academics, determined to escape that house as soon as possible. By that time, I think I had already become the scapegoat, the so-called failed older sister of the family. "Listen here, we won't allow you to go to college. You're just a defective, good-for-nothing anyway. There's no way you could get into college. You'll start working right after high school and hand over your earnings to us. You need to properly repay us for raising someone as unlovely as you." "That's right," my mother sneered. "You've always lacked gratitude. College expenses? We might consider it for Elle, but we won't spend another penny on you. You'll spend your life serving this household. Well, not that you could get a decent job anyway." They told me this in my 3rd year of high school. By the way, I recorded that entire conversation and have kept it to this day. By then, I had already been recording nearly every abusive word and unreasonable demand from my family. Elle, my younger sister, completely looked down on me due to our parents' unchanging attitude. She constantly tried to assert her superiority. "I'm going to become a doctor and take over Dad's practice. I'll work hard for Big Sister's share too," she would declare with a saccharine smile. "Oh, how wonderful of you to say that. Yes, use her as an example of what not to be. Don't worry, Elle, you can do it. That's right, we'll support you all the way. Unlike your sister Elle, you are truly our pride and joy." They would have these exchanges right in front of me, deliberately rubbing salt into the wound. Yes, it was all just a charade. After graduating high school, I worked various part-time jobs, scraping by on my own. For about 3 years, I worked as a freelancer. During this time, I still lived at home. Despite finding my presence annoying, my family refused to let me leave the house on my own, probably because they wanted to keep me around to use as they pleased. However, what they didn't know was that I had secretly rented an apartment. They would constantly say things like, "We won't forgive you if you do this," or "We won't forgive you if you don't do that." But at some point, I came to a realization, once I became an adult. I didn't need my family's forgiveness for anything. Of course, there were practical challenges like securing a career and financial stability, but I was determined to gain independence. By the way, since I had been underreporting my part-time income, I was able to keep the amount of money they demanded from me to a minimum. Additionally, I started investing, slowly but surely growing my savings. Then, when my sister was preparing for her high school entrance exams, I was finally kicked out of the house for a convenient reason. "I can't concentrate on studying with you around." My parents apparently intended to forgive me and let me return home once things cooled down. But I took that opportunity to leave for good. They must have been shocked that the daughter they thought was completely incapable of standing on her own didn't come crawling back. But I imagine they quickly stopped caring. After all, to them, my sister was the only child who mattered. 9 years have passed since then, As I stand there, lost in thought, the argument between my sister and Ron, the groom, grows increasingly heated. Ah, right. Today is their wedding, so these two are getting married. The invitation had my sister's name on it, but I hadn't paid much attention, assuming it was just someone with the same name. That's how irrelevant this family had become to me. I'm telling you, why are you defending that woman? I've been saying from the start, she's an intruder, her presence here is ruining everything, just throw her out. My sister shrieks, her voice growing sharper with frustration. And I've been telling you, I invited them to this wedding, you checked the invitation list with me, didn't you? They've already checked in at reception, they're proper guests, Ron retorts firmly. Anyway, you should apologize for being so rude earlier. The two continue arguing, their words overlapping in an increasingly chaotic back and forth. Is it really okay for them to be fighting like this right before their wedding ceremony? As I ponder this, my father suddenly catches my gaze. A flicker of realization flashes in his eyes. Then, his expression shifts dramatically as he processes a shocking thought. How could he be? The son of Ford General Hospital. What? Ford General Hospital? That huge hospital? You mean the director's son? Someone gasps. At these words, my mother's eyes widen in sheer disbelief. Hospital director's son? In an instant, all attention, my parents, my sisters, her fiancés, focuses entirely on us. Kane, ever composed, offers a polite but measured bow. How do you do? I'm Kane Ford, and this is my wife, Paisley. I also bow slightly, offering a sweet yet poised smile. Indeed, Kane's parents are both highly respected doctors who run a prestigious, long-established hospital. As their heir, Kane himself is a brilliant and promising doctor, constantly refining his skills and earning the admiration of those in the medical field. My parents gape at me, their mouths opening and closing like fish out of water as they take in this revelation. Meanwhile, my sister's fiancé, Ron, who now appears to be sweating slightly, quickly jumps in, his tone suddenly shifting. Oh, what a coincidence! Dr. Ford's wife just happens to be my wife's sister. This makes us family, doesn't it? Dr. Allen, thank you so much for seeing our son the other day. Before he can continue, I cut him off. This man, Alan Ron, the one marrying my sister, is also a doctor. He works at a university hospital and coincidentally recently examined our son, who hadn't been feeling well. That's the extent of our relationship. Although from what I've heard, Kane and Alan have had various professional interactions before. Apparently, Alan deeply admires Kane. How is your son doing? Alan asks hastily, clearly eager to curry favor. Based on my examination, he needs immediate treatment. Please come to our hospital for initial testing and... well, we decided to get another opinion afterward, I say smoothly, my sweet smile never wavering. You know how important second opinions are, right? Alan freezes completely, his face going pale. It seems he sees my son as a VIP patient. That must be why he's so desperate. Treating my son at his hospital? Absolutely not. It's deeply unpleasant to have a patient, especially my own child, viewed as nothing more than a cash cow. With a calm, unwavering smile, I reject Alan's offer. Then, a derisive snort echoes through the tense air. What's this? Are you trying to get back at us? Just because you're a high school graduate, you think you're something special for catching a doctor husband? How stupid can you be? Elle sneers, her voice dripping with contempt. Just because you married the heir to a big hospital doesn't make you any more important. Your education level hasn't changed. Your thinking is still so shallow, and, to make matters worse, you even have a child. How pitiful for a boy to have such a defective woman as his mother. Hey, Lel, that's enough. Alan cuts in, his voice laced with urgency. They're your blood relatives, aren't they? Why do you keep saying such awful things? However, Elle merely glares at him, utterly convinced of her own righteousness. She believes, without a shred of doubt, that she is in the right. Suddenly, Kane turns to me and asks, Paisley, are these people really your family? I shake my head, my voice steady. No, they're not family at all. After all, family doesn't scream at you over trivial matters or withhold food for an entire day just because you accidentally spilled something on the table. Family doesn't give you secondhand clothes from who knows where while buying your sister brand-name dresses and then laughing at the comparison. Family doesn't destroy your study materials saying, you're stupid anyway, so you don't need these. They don't soak your textbooks in water just to prove a point. So no, these people aren't my family anymore. You're right, Kane agrees, his voice cold. Family doesn't throw you outside, barefoot, in the dead of winter just because you refused to lend a book to your sister. They don't lock you in a sweltering storage shed in the middle of summer and call it discipline. They don't sell your belongings without permission. And they certainly don't tell their own child to her face that they'll work her like a slave for the rest of her life. The room falls into an uneasy silence. Even the neighbors had noticed something was wrong back then. The way the clinic treated the two sisters so differently had raised suspicions of abuse. Some parents even stopped bringing their children there, unwilling to support a medical practice run by people who could treat their own child so cruelly. And now their business is suffering because of it. But the worst part? My parents still haven't realized why. During this matter-of-fact exchange where I lay bare the ugly truth of my past, Alan stares at me in stunned silence. My parents look equally shocked, not because they regret their actions, but because they're astonished that their daughter, who left home years ago, somehow knows about their clinic's decline. By the way, I didn't find out on my own. This information came from my in-laws' investigation. Kane's family had looked into my past, not out of morbid curiosity, but out of concern. My in-laws, unlike my birth family, are kind people. They sympathized with everything I had endured. So much so that they were even angrier about it than I was. Perhaps they thought this information might be useful one day, for revenge maybe? Hey, stop spewing lies, my sister suddenly shouts, her voice shrill with desperation. We never did any of that. It's your fault for being a failure. Ron, don't believe anything this woman says. But I think it's too late. Ellen is looking at her with pure disgust. If only she hadn't chased after me, forcing this confrontation, she could have avoided this humiliating moment. No, you're the one who's been lying all along, Alan finally says, his tone sharp with realization. What do you mean? You told me Dr. Ford's wife was just a high school graduate. But she's not. She's a college graduate who started her own company, and not just any company, a medical food corporation that even our hospital relies on. What? A president? My sister looks at me as if she's seeing a ghost. My parents wear the same stunned expression, as if the reality before them is too much to comprehend. Don't you dare lie, you only graduated high school, my mother snaps. I meet her gaze, unshaken. What's this about college? Are you saying you went to college without telling us? Yes, I did. After all, I was an adult, and I had no reason to report anything to people who were no longer my family. How dare you speak to your parents that way, my father roars. We told you we wouldn't allow you to go to college. I exhale sharply, exasperated by their absurdity. And why exactly did I need your permission? My parents grit their teeth, but they have no response. During my years as a part-time worker after high school graduation, I saved up a considerable amount of money. I used part of it for college expenses because, despite what they believed, there were still things I wanted to learn, things I wanted to do. Once I left home, I was free to make my own choices, and I seized every opportunity. It was during college that I met my husband. It was also the time I started building my company. Thinking back on it fills me with nostalgia. Meanwhile, my sister, her face deathly pale, begins muttering to herself. No, it's a lie. It has to be a lie. Because this one was supposed to be a defective failure, a useless older sister who couldn't do anything on her own. I thought she must have died in a gutter somewhere after being thrown out of the house. But instead, she even went to college, she started a company, she's a president, and she married the heir to a big hospital? Her voice rises into a hysterical shriek. Why? I was supposed to be the one who would definitely be happier. Why? Why are you more successful than me? Why do you look so happy? I tilt my head slightly, my lips curving into a serene smile. I wonder why. Maybe because, unlike you, I never let my bitterness consume me. I kept working hard even while enduring unfair treatment. And in the end, I built my own happiness. Family? Well, I guess I was pretty lucky too. I said this while turning my gaze toward my sister, my voice calm but carrying an undeniable weight. Then, without warning, I dropped a bombshell. By the way, I heard you actually dropped out of middle school. Is that true? The atmosphere froze instantly. My former family members and Alan all went rigid, their expressions shifting from shock to disbelief. Well, what are you suddenly talking about? Who dropped out of middle school? My sister's reaction was immediate and defensive. Even now, she had the nerve to talk back, though I could see the unease flickering in her eyes. Actually, I heard it from our kind aunt, the one who's always been good to me, I continued smoothly, unbothered by her protests. After I left home, you got complacent, thinking you could easily get into any prestigious school without even trying. You barely studied, convinced that everything would just fall into place for you. Then, when exam day came, you turned in almost blank papers. Of course, you failed. And after that, you threw tantrums at home, locked yourself away, and became a complete shut-in. Alan's face grew increasingly stern as I spoke, while my parents and sister seemed to lose more and more color with each passing second. You only started going out again recently, I continued, and that was after our parents introduced you to Dr. Allen as a suitable marriage partner. It was only then that you finally broke out of your self-imposed isolation. My sister clenched her fists, her whole body trembling. Alan, meanwhile, was staring at her with cold, piercing eyes. The aunt who told me all this is a distant relative on my father's side. She's a notorious gossip who somehow always knows everything that goes on in the family, and she's been feeding me information ever since I left home. Though I had only met her 2 or 3 times when I was little, she had always looked out for me and, surprisingly, even became my guardian in a way. Stop spreading lies, my sister snapped, her voice shaking. You're making all of this up. I ignored her outburst and pressed on. Oh, and one more thing about your supposed job. You claim to be working as a medical office clerk at the family clinic, but that's a lie too, isn't it? You don't actually have any qualifications, do you? You're just working as an odd job helper, right? My words sliced through the air like a blade. After all, they can't assign specialized medical work to someone without the proper certifications. I suppose I should at least give our parents some credit for retaining that much ethical sense. Stop it! Those are all lies! Everything you're saying is a lie! My sister shrieked, her voice now borderline hysterical. Is that so? I replied, my tone cool and unwavering. Well, I'm simply telling you what I've heard. Whether you believe it or not is entirely up to you. As soon as I said this, my sister spun around to face Alan, desperation etched all over her face. But Alan's expression was unreadable. Suspicion, confusion, and growing disgust clouded his features. Ellen, Alan said slowly, his voice dangerously calm, you told me, and our parents, that you graduated from a prestigious women's university, that you earned your qualifications, and have been helping out at the family clinic. His piercing gaze bore into her, Was it all a lie? The room fell into a suffocating silence. Academic fraud? Alan muttered under his breath, his voice tinged with disbelief. This is fraud. You deceived me. That's not true, my sister cried out. Ron, don't believe anything this woman says. Ron, you're my husband, right? You believe me, don't you? Alan didn't respond immediately. Instead, his eyes narrowed. Then tell me, he said, his tone icy. Name just one professor from the university you supposedly attended. My sister froze. A single bead of sweat rolled down her temple. That's not relevant right now, she stammered, her voice faltering for the first time. Oh, it's not? Alan's lips curled into a humorless smile. Then let's settle this another way. I'll call one of the professors from the department you claim to have studied in right now. They're acquaintances of my parents. We've socialized as families. I'll ask them directly if there was ever a student named Elle. The blood drained from my sister's face in an instant. And just like that, the perfect image she had carefully crafted for herself came crashing down. Alan says this while reaching for his smartphone. A student named Elle? Let's find out. Stop it! There's no need for that, my sister shrieks, her voice cracking with desperation. If you would just believe me, that should be enough. Before anyone can react, she lunges forward, snatching Alan's phone from his grasp. With a sharp motion, she slams it onto the floor, the screen shattering on impact. As if that weren't enough, she grinds the device further beneath her heel, her face contorted into something almost inhuman. Don't try to verify anything, just believe me. The sheer madness in her eyes unsettles Alan, who takes an instinctive step back. Even my parents, despite all their previous arrogance, are visibly shaken. In a panic, they rush forward, trying to restrain my sister before she causes an even bigger scene. By now, the commotion has drawn the attention of the other wedding guests and venue staff, all of whom gather around, whispering among themselves. The situation has spiraled into a full-blown spectacle. It should have been embarrassing, humiliating even, but instead, I feel nothing. Perhaps it's because, to me, this no longer feels like my problem. I have no lingering attachment to these people. My true family is my husband and my son, no one else. Kane, ever perceptive, leans toward me. Well, shall we go home? We've given the wedding gift. And we've fulfilled our social obligation, right? There's an unspoken question in his words. Are you sure you're done, Paisley? Have you said everything you needed to say? Is your revenge complete? I answer with a bright, carefree smile. I don't care anymore. Let's go home. Then, as if nothing had happened, I add playfully, Oh, let's stop by the cake shop in this hotel on our way out. I want to try their super luxury cake. Kane chuckles, his tense expression softening. Sure, let's buy some to take home. Hand in hand, we walk away from the wedding venue, leaving the chaos behind us, laughing together like we always do. Sometime later, I heard that Alan was sued for exaggerating patient diagnoses and overcharging medical fees. His career was in ruins. Then, much to my amusement, my parents came seeking my help. Of course, they didn't have my contact information, so instead they showed up at my husband's hospital, causing a scene at the reception desk. Listen here, you, the wife of this hospital's heir. She's our daughter. Let us see her right now. You can contact the heir through this hospital, can't you? We're in trouble here. She's family. She has to help us. We're just asking her to repay us for raising her. That's right. I never thought she'd actually be useful, but I guess it was worth raising her after all. Who would have thought she'd catch an even better husband than Elle? We're this son-in-law's in-laws. Of course he should help us. Apparently, they were making an absolute spectacle of themselves at the reception area. But the ones who came out to meet them were neither me nor my husband. It was my in-laws. With a single cold glare, my father-in-law silenced my parents completely. Then his voice rang out, firm and unwavering. What do you want with our daughter? My parents froze. They looked like frogs trapped beneath the piercing gaze of a snake. And then, without another word, they turned and scurried away, humiliated. They persisted in trying to make contact after that, but their negligence and cruelty had already caught up with them. Their clinic shut down not long after. Their reputation, already stained, had been completely ruined. It turns out that rumors of how they had treated me had spread throughout the medical community. No one wanted to support a clinic run by people capable of such heartless behavior. When I heard about their downfall, I felt nothing. After that, I learned that my sister and Alan had divorced. Actually, I was surprised their marriage had even lasted a few months. Perhaps Alan's legal troubles and his subsequent firing from the hospital had been the final straw. Still, my sister was not one to accept defeat easily. Determined to prove that she could still come out on top, she launched herself into a new mission, securing a husband better than mine. Her target, a married doctor more than 20 years her senior. However, the affair was quickly discovered and the doctor's wife took legal action against her, demanding a hefty compensation. Disgraced and desperate, my sister turned to our parents for help. And in an ironic twist of fate, they turned on her, disowning her as a family disgrace. From that point on, I stopped keeping track of what happened to her. But rumors found their way to me nonetheless. I heard that she started working at nightclubs, her health deteriorating rapidly. I heard that she became homeless, wandering with nowhere to go. But I had long since lost interest in her fate. As for my parents, they too had fallen from grace. I heard that they were looking for jobs as a doctor and a nurse, but given their age, nearing retirement, not a single hospital was willing to hire them. The medical field is a small world after all, and their past had caught up with them in ways they never anticipated. Well, those are just the rumors, not that it matters to me. I no longer waste time thinking about people who aren't my family, because my family is the one I built. After getting a second opinion at another hospital, my son's health issues were resolved with simple medication, no hospitalization required. I protect my family, and I always will. Looking back on everything, I realize how much I have learned from my past. The struggles, the betrayals, the cruelty, I have endured it all. And yet, I stand here today, stronger than ever. If there is one thing I want to leave behind as my message, it is this. Your past does not define you. You are not bound by the circumstances of your birth, nor by the family you were given. Blood relations mean nothing if there is no love, respect, or support. A real family is not determined by shared DNA, but by the people who stand by you, who lift you up instead of tearing you down. For years, I longed for acceptance from people who never truly cared about me. I sacrificed, I endured, I hoped, but in the end, I was nothing more than an afterthought to them. It took me a long time to understand that I did not need their approval, nor did I need their forgiveness. The moment I stopped seeking their validation was the moment I truly became free. To anyone who has ever felt abandoned, unloved, or unwanted, know this: you are not defined by the rejection of others. You have the power to build your own happiness, to create a life filled with love and meaning. Surround yourself with people who cherish you, who respect you, who uplift you. Those are the people who deserve to be called family. I have learned to protect what is truly important. My husband, my child, they are my real family. They are my home, and I will always protect them just as they protect me. So if you are struggling, if you feel trapped in a toxic environment, remember this: you have the strength to walk away. You have the power to redefine your life. Do not waste your time on those who do not value you. Focus on those who do. Your happiness is in your hands. Never let anyone take it away from you.